You guys like my wolf tattoo? I got it done by my little niece yesterday. She's 8 years old, turning 9 this year, and she loves temporary tattoos. And this is kind of a cool, makes me feel more like of a badass for some reason. So I actually kind of like it. It is already peeling off, but this is a nice kind of identity shift that I'm really vibing with. I don't have any tattoos, but this is definitely making me want to get one. So welcome to today's video. Thank you so much for joining me today. I wanted to celebrate a huge milestone with you. I'm celebrating 4 years of Wondercrafter full time. So 4 years ago, I actually traded in my pharmacist white coat and Walgreens badge for ink-stained fingers, unpredictable income, huge self-doubt, and now I have a 1-year-old on my hip, which is pretty crazy to even think about. But honestly, it was the best decision ever because I am loving every minute of all this chaos. But the reality of being your own boss is that it hasn't all been pretty pens and passive income. I've learned some pretty wild lessons, not only about myself, but about business, motherhood, and really making art your full-time job. So if you're thinking about starting a calligraphy business, thinking about going full-time with your current art business, you need to hear this. If you really love something and are super passionate about it, then it is worth taking that bet on yourself and just having that confidence to do so. Because the worst thing that can happen is you're gonna fail. And the reality of the situation is you're already failing if you don't take a chance on yourself. So if you're unhappy where you are and are still doing the same things that you've always done, expecting something to change, I have bad news for you. Nothing's gonna change unless you take action and make a different decision tomorrow that you did today. You can't expect different results by doing the same thing over and over and over again. And every small step that you take to hike that mountain is gonna get you closer and closer to the top. So you might as well just start now. So quick pause here. If you're a calligrapher dreaming of turning your passion into profit, you are in the right place. I have helped almost 200 calligraphers around the world start and scale their calligraphy businesses, reaching wild, unimaginable goals like landing high-end brand gigs, traveling for client work, and hitting 10K months or even 100K years. You guys, if they can do it, so can you. By the end of this video, you're going to know my 4 most game-changing lessons that I've learned in the 4 years that I have become a full-time calligrapher, full-time coach, and a brand new mom of 1 year. You're gonna walk away with a pep in your step and maybe the push that you need to actually take your own leap. So let's get into it. So the number one thing that I have learned is that problems exist everywhere. So choose yours wisely. And I've learned this the hard way, trust me. So when you're in corporate, you don't have control of your time and you're really answering to someone else. You're navigating through office politics or time off or different responsibilities. But ultimately for me, I personally just didn't enjoy working for someone else. And I felt like I really wanted to build my own dreams. But as an entrepreneur, especially when you're in the online space, there's a whole different flavor of problems. You've got keyboard warriors who love sharing their unsolicited opinions, whether it's on an engraving video or based on how you run your business or your style of calligraphy. There's so many things that people criticize on, and the matter of fact is you're not going to make everyone happy, and you're not supposed to because you are your own business. But listen, if you're making waves, someone will throw shade. I promise you. And that's not a sign to stop. That's actually a sign that you're shining. And I've learned that being misunderstood or disliked usually just means that I'm doing something bold, and that is exactly where the growth happens. So you do want to be super tenacious and not listen to the people who are sending you negative energy. The truth is, there's no perfect path here, and full-time entrepreneurship isn't for everyone, and I'm not recommending that by any means. However, the difference is, as an entrepreneur, you actually get to choose your problems and how you deal with it. And for me, that freedom is worth everything. So lesson number 2 that I've learned is that structure is actually your secret weapon. So in lesson number 1, I did mention that working a 9-to-5 corporate job means you're going to be working for someone else for 8+ hours a day. And that is ultimately just being controlled by someone else. But let's be honest, When you are your own boss, especially when you have to maintain your online presence, it's really easy to work all day long throughout every single moment that you have your phone and have zero boundaries along the way. So time boundaries, what are those? I'm still figuring that out for myself, but here's what I've learned in the past 4 years is that if you don't create structure, your business and sanity will slowly crumble. You have to be really intentional about your time and how you spend it if you want to succeed as a CEO. What I like to do every day is to start off by getting dressed and get out of your pajamas, put on makeup, and really start putting on that boss hat that makes you feel more like a CEO. So this might sound silly for you, but for me, it's literally these blue light glasses, and it not only helps me kind of save my eyesight and less straining, but it also makes me feel like I'm here, I'm in the zone, and I've shifted my whole identity to become this calligraphy CEO. And I usually will take it off when I go to eat lunch or do something else or step out of the house. I also try to set up co-working days with some of the crafties that are local to me here in LA. And that has been super helpful to just be able to build that community, have co-workers, and really give yourself that workspace and a real schedule. So even just getting out of the house for a couple of hours actually makes a huge difference for me mentally, and that's super helpful. So one of the things that I actually recently rediscovered is working out. And I know that sounds crazy, but when you're breastfeeding, you're so focused on putting all of the calorie and energy into feeding the baby. But now that I'm done breastfeeding, I can now start working out again. And I've actually rediscovered my love for spin classes. And that has been super fun and so challenging because it often builds that grit, the focus, and gives you that problem-solving energy as you push past that discomfort of all the lactic acid building in you and just finishing that set, finishing that sprint, and being able to tackle problems with that same mindset. So I guess what I'm trying to say is discipline is the not so secret sauce that actually makes freedom more sustainable for you. So let's talk about number 3, which is remembering your why. And I know we've talked about this a lot in my previous videos, but I think it's worth mentioning one more time because the why has always been a core factor, not only for me and why I do what I do, but also what direction my business is going to go in, because that is such a huge factor for continuing past some of the hateful comments. So my why has always been a core factor for me when it comes to running my business and what direction is actually going to go towards. But I do have to admit that I've actually forgotten my why and had to adjust my why since having my baby last year. So let me explain. Prior to parenthood, my why has always been focused on connecting and uplifting a generous and knowledgeable calligraphy community within the Craft Academy. And with live events, I get to create these unforgettable keepsakes for brands and clients and amazing influential people every single day. Prior to having a baby, it was such a singular focus. I had so much clarity, so much energy, and was like so gung-ho about that because I knew why I was doing what I was doing. So ever since I had my baby last year and going through postpartum depression pretty much for the entire first year, like I'm still trying to taper off antidepressants right now, which is kind of a painful process, but it did help me get just a little bit more energy and to be just a little bit more clear about what my intentions were. But I'll be the first to admit that I've considered burning both of my businesses down to the ground, something that I've been working on since 2013. So it's been almost 12 years of just learning calligraphy, building the business, and just like that, having a baby completely rocked my world. And I just wanted to shut everything down and just like focus on the family, focus on him, and making sure that he has a good life and a good balance and things with his mom being present. But yeah, I've done a lot of soul searching over the past year. Especially within the last couple of months or so since being done with breastfeeding and just having a little bit less hormones to kind of work through. And what I've realized in this first year is that juggling 2 businesses and parenthood is that being a parent makes you a better entrepreneur and coach, and being an entrepreneur makes you a better parent. My goal with both of these businesses is to create what's called a legacy business, something that's going to last beyond me, something that I can pass down to future generations and really leave an impact on the community and on the world. So just to be clear, I actually don't think my son will want to inherit Wondercrafter and the Craft Academy, or even want to do calligraphy in the first place. I can shove it down his throat and make him if I wanted to, but I'm not. I'm gonna let him kind of make that decision for himself. But the real legacy lies in the lives that I'm changing and the keepsakes that are going to be cherished for multiple generations to come. And honestly, when the Craft Academy clients, they message me privately to thank me for creating the Craft Academy and tell me how much the program and the support has changed their lives, the outlooks of their businesses, but also what positives come with that because they have a better work-life balance and they're able to contribute financially to their families, be able to do something for themselves, be able to teach their kids that having a business and being an entrepreneur and paving your own path has certain levels of freedom and prosperity that comes with that. That's why I do what I do. That is the thing that keeps me going. And that's the reason why I can continue to thrive past the hateful comments. Why I choose to have a nanny 2 to 3 times a week when I have to work. And that is not always about money. At the end of the day, it's what you're passionate about and what legacy you want to leave on the world. And that is why it's so important to have a why. So my fourth and last lesson is to be the scientist of your business, not the perfectionist. A lot of people worry that turning their passion into a career will kill their creativity. And to some degree, I have to admit it is true. Because honestly, these days I rarely do calligraphy just for fun. And honestly, that's okay with me. What really keeps me excited these days is how to approach my business and my skills as a scientist. So being a scientist in your business means you're constantly testing, tweaking, and improving not only your business, but also your creative skills as well. It means sharpening your artistic skills and investing in things that are actually going to propel you forward, not only just as a business owner, but also as a human being. And it really does translate to your personal life when you're doing things well and you're happy in your business. Because let's be real, being stagnant is probably the worst thing that can happen for you and your business because you're no longer growing and no longer improving. And that's really when things start to decay and you start to lose track in your progress. So this year, I actually added in fashion illustration in my repertoire, and it has been one of the most fun challenges that I have ever done since I started my business and got really good at calligraphy. It's been super fun to actually learn how to draw the croquis and mix colors and blend it to really refine my workflow and client communication. It has been a really similar kind of creative process that I know from doing and running the calligraphy business, but it does have a whole new set of problems to solve, and that's really what lights me up inside and gets me super excited about continuing to grow my artistic and creative skills. So I hope that was helpful and it provided you clarity and inspiration and helps give you just a little bit of an insight of what it's like to be a full-time entrepreneur. Not everyone's path is the same. I have 2 businesses and a baby and a whole family and some other things, obviously. So my journey is going to look very different from someone else's, but I hope that gave you just a little bit more insight into what things are actually like on the day-to-day. And obviously I'm still learning and growing every single day, every single year. And the goal of the business is to continue growing it for the next 5-10 years, because this is not just a get rich quick kind of scheme here. This is like a longevity and what we call a legacy business. So if you're a creative who is done playing small and ready to turn your passion into a profitable and joyful business, let's make that happen. Go to wondercrafter.com/apply to join and apply for the Craft Academy, and let me know what tip was the most surprising for you, or if you have any other questions about going full time, please feel free to drop that into the comments, and don't forget to subscribe. We'll see you in the next video. Bye!